Welcome, and thank you for joining us for Contemporary Art Taos 2020, the Artist Interview Series. This series consists of short interviews between myself and the artists in this exhibition, and is released twice a month for the duration of the show, which lasts through April. I'm Nicole, I'm the Curator of Exhibitions and Collections here at the Harwood Museum of Art, and joining me today is Sarah Stolar. Thanks, Sarah, for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Sarah has two works in the show right now. The first is Brittney Saw Kiput, and the other is Sisters. Behind me is Brittney. So let's start with your journey through art mediums. You're an accomplished oil painter, but you're also, you work in drawing, new media, digital art, installation, film, sound, video, performance art, dance. Can you walk us through your relationship with these different mediums and how they act as vehicles for different expressions?
Sure. I think first and foremost, I am an oil painter. I think everything I do stems from oil painting and a kind of automatic drawing process, which is not like the paintings that are in the show or what's behind me, but more of kind of like an automatic abstract process, thinking through lines and marks. I think that with different mediums, I still approach things as an oil painter. When I'm working in oil, I'm very intuitive. I've been doing it for a very long time. So it almost becomes this, to quote my mother, and I know we'll probably talk about her later, but to quote my mom, she says that when she's painting, she's kind of holding onto the brush and it's dragging her around, kind of like Fantasia, Disney or something like that. That's kind of where I go when I'm painting. And so when I'm working in film, for example, or video, the approach is still very similar. There's a lot more planning and kind of advanced thinking that happens in terms of concepts and how I want to see them unroll, but I still think about things as a painter. One of the reasons that I move between mediums so much is because I realized after undergrad and as I moved into graduate school that I couldn't say everything I wanted to say in oil painting. And that I think probably one of the most eye-opening moments that I had in my journey was in graduate school when I transferred from the painting department to the new genres department. And I discovered and was taught that the medium that you pick up should best suit the concept that you're trying to communicate. And so if it's shot in black and white, grainy 16 millimeter film, why is it that and not high color digital video? And why is it that and not an oil painting or something else? In terms of movement expression, it's a part of my process in the studio. I take dance breaks all the time. I'm a dancer for my whole life and a performer for my whole life. And so I'm not sure that there is this kind of, I don't see myself performing dance as part of my work. I mean, who knows where my work will go, but it's, for me right now anyway, movement is really helpful to generate inspiration and help me keep me moving quite literally in the studio.
Sure, that's great. I love the intentionality with which you use them all. So tell us specifically about the work in this exhibition, starting, maybe with Brittney, which is a very large painting. What is the process of creating this work?
Okay, so this particular painting that's behind you, this is a portrait of the artist Brittney Watkins, and I met her at the Vermont Studio Center, and I was working on a series of drawings and paintings at the time that were directly intended to interpret portraits of individuals who are artists, social activists, sex workers, poets, writers, people who women and also non-binary individuals who I feel deserve to be kind of embedded in the canon of historical portraiture, if you will, or large scale monumental painting, if you will. The painting that's behind you is 8 feet long. And in my opinion, it still kind of doesn't even capture all of her energy and power and what she has. She is as big as that. This is a true portrait of her in her studio. It was a really interesting experience in making that picture because we had a photo shoot in her studio in Vermont, and she uses a green screen in her work and embodies these characters. I kind of think of her almost as this kind of really highly feminine Mike Kelly or something. Like she creates these incredibly almost disturbing characters that completely transform her from who she is in real life to these individuals. And I've often used green screens in my work so I could then drop out the background in Photoshop and things like that. And in this case, I felt that it was important to leave it there. She's sawing up a chair because that's what she does in her studio. She cuts up furniture and makes installations. What's really interesting is how the image transforms after creating it and in this feminist context. We have this woman who is clearly embodies this kind of sexy quality to her, for lack of a better word. She's wearing a shirt that says, "I did it for art," actually, and she has her arm here. So I thought of her almost as this contemporary, we can do it woman. And then this domestic act of sawing up an armchair. There's all kinds of places that the viewer can go with that story.
Mm-hmm. Are you using oil? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Are you using oil painting with intention? Oil painting as this history of the male gaze, of the male painter depicting the women frequently unclothed. It seems as if you've almost freed these women or repositioned them, out of that male gaze into a new light where they're sort of seeing themselves or we're seeing one another. Is that intentional?
I love that. And I have often said that my audience, I think it's really important for artists, and I tell my students this all the time: know who your audience is. It's really it helps for clarity in the direction of your work. And I think that my paintings are paintings of women for women, and that's why I make them. I don't know if we'll ever be free from the male gaze. I don't know even what I think about that. What I'm interested in is I'm interested in stereotypical feminine sexuality, where that comes from, who embodies that and why, what makes it right or wrong. Is there such a thing? I know that we've had discussions about this even at the Harwood. I hosted a panel called Pink, Feminine Aesthetics. And so I'm interested in that empowerment that comes from that. These portraits are really intended to make the subject feel powerful. That's probably the primary goal. I just reached out to a friend who is moving through a really hard time, and I said, let me do a giant painting of you, because it's a great way to have this connection with other women and other people who it becomes this kind of empowerment experience between me and the subject. And then there's, of course, the history of oil painting and portraiture and what that means. But I don't know if we'll ever be free from the male gaze. Yeah, I did do a series of portraits of small kind of sexy paintings called the boudoir that I thought were kind of, what would it be like if you made sexy paintings of women for women to look at? And is that different? And do we know when we look at it? And I don't have the answers to the questions. That's why I'm making the paintings, so I can try to figure it out.
Is that series on your website for people to see?
It is.
Great. I'm going to need my notes for this next question. So you're the daughter of artist and educator Merlene Shane. Your family lineage includes 19th century German painter Adolf von Menzel, Rookwood pottery master potter John von Menzel of the American Arts and Crafts movement. You grew up in your mother's famed studio. Have you always felt destined to be an artist?
When I was a little girl, I always thought that I wasn't as good as my mom. And so I actually decided to play the violin, and that was my goal. I wanted to be a concert violinist, but I never actually learned how to read music. So while I made it into kind of a high school for creative and performing arts in Ohio, I was quickly demoted. It was really discouraged. It was part of kind of what led me to eventually drop out of high school, get my GED. And so I don't know if I always felt that I was destined to be an artist. I have a joke. I say to my students that I came out of the womb with a can of turpentine and a handful of brushes. And so you better listen to me. Any students who are listening are probably laughing because they've heard me say that many times. I do now. I feel that way now. I have really early childhood memories of drawing the live nude model. And I think I was maybe like 5 or 6 years old. And I remember crying on the floor of the classroom while my mom was teaching because they weren't as good as the college students. And I remember my mom saying, keep practicing, you'll get better. Now I feel a great responsibility. It's one of the reasons that I haven't given up, or I keep getting drawn back to or pulled back into traditional oil painting, because I feel this kind of stewardship around it to carry on a tradition, to teach it, to uphold it in a way, to try to maybe rewrite it, who's included in it and what they look like, what figurative painting is about. But yeah, I'm really proud of my family history, and it's really important to me. And so when I decided to become an artist, I walked into the art academy and I saw these drawings on the wall, and I was really inspired, and I went home and asked my mom to help me build a portfolio. And so from that point forward, it was just visual art from then on. Yeah.
So a little bit of a subject change, but in San Francisco, you worked for the amazing Annie Sprinkle. For those who don't know, Annie Sprinkle's, she's a certified sexologist. She's an advocate for sex work and sex worker healthcare. She's a sex educator, a stripper, a feminist adult film star, a sex positive feminist. How was that experience, or how has that experience influenced your work in the exploration of the female psychology?
That's a great question. I was incredibly lucky to work with both Annie Sprinkle and her wife, Beth Stevens, who is an accomplished artist in her own right. And they're really a collaborative team. I'm really lucky to still be under the mentorship of them, and to have them to give me advice and still be my friends, and to be able to work with them for 7 years. I think probably the biggest impact that working with them had on me, I'm going to just circle to a quote that Annie said to me once, when I remember crying from my studio. I was rejected from this, that, or the other, and felt really alone, like nobody cared about the work, and said, I don't understand. I work so hard, and I'm so serious, and how come no one cares? And she said to me, maybe you're just hanging around the wrong people. And the art world is really big, and maybe your circle is the wrong circle. And so suddenly it was like an aha moment. It was a really obvious thing to say, but it's really empowering to watch Annie and Beth use their voice and expression in whatever way that they want, without fear of consequence. It's not easy for women in the art world or in academia. I still feel that male artists get to make whatever they want. They get to do whatever kind of imagery they want. They get to do whatever they want, say whatever they want in meetings, act however they want. And we don't get that privilege. We just don't. And so, I think that's probably the biggest impact of working with them, is being inspired to really be true to my own voice, to make the imagery that I want to make. For my Taos friends who saw my Pecha Kucha talk and heard me talk about me kind of arriving at this place, like, well, nobody cares anyway, so I'm just going to make whatever I want. And once that happened, and I started to kind of fall down my interest in female sexuality, female psychology, the cliche, the stereotype, and start to investigate those things without concern for what the art world has to say about it, it was really freeing. I think probably the other thing that was really great is the challenge. I was their costume designer, and every performance was a different set of problems. I kind of felt like I was on Tim Gunn's, what was that show? Project Runway, right? We want costumes that look like astronauts, Lady Gaga, Strawberry Shortcake, and the ocean all in one. And I'm like, okay. So there was this great kind of encouragement to work with a variety of materials, to be really experimental. They gave me a lot of creative freedom. And I learned a lot about how to mix mediums and how to incorporate performance into greater visual artworks.
Absolutely. Well, I'd love to see an episode of Project Runway featuring Annie Sprinkle. That sounds So you mentioned it a couple of times, but you are the chair of the art department at UNM Taos.
Yeah.
And I've witnessed the environment that you've created over there. It's really lovely. Your students regard you as a role model, a support system, a friend, an established artist in the art world. There's this thread of intergenerational feminism in your life that I've seen. Your mother was an incredible nurturer of you as an artist. You've become a support system for the students at UNM Taos, many of whom are women or non-binary. Now you take care of your mother who has Alzheimer's. How does that relationship between women factor into your life and into your work?
Well, as a teacher, I think, especially for marginalized students, underprivileged students, I want to fast track. I don't want them to make the same mistakes I made. So I'm really honest and vulnerable with my students and really clear with how being a woman artist in academia and in the art world affects me, mistakes I've made, choices that I've made that maybe weren't the best decisions, or how I dealt with relationships in the past. And so really trying to be a mentor in the sense of helping them to succeed as fast as possible. And I'm really lucky to be able to work with a group of students at UNM Taos who I think are hungry for that mentorship. And who also, I felt that when I first started there, that they were hungry to understand that what they do matters, and that you don't have to have a lot of money to make big museum worthy artworks. So that kind of factors into how I teach in terms of using recycled materials, or rewriting the academic paradigm, trying to kind of really shift it to undo the traditions, so they can really find their voice. That comes from watching my mother. I grew up in her school, and so I watched how she taught students from a very young age and started helping her when I was 15. So the nurturing that she provided and the amount of joy that I saw come from her to see the success of her students, I wanted to feel that too. It gives me a sense of place. The art world is very ego. It's very internal, and I think it's changing now. It was really snobby at one point, I felt like, and I think language is changing. How we talk about art is changing, and I embrace all of this. I think it's great, and enough with this kind of high privileged place that only a few can be. So the influence of being under the tutelage of my mom and watching her nurture this school for 30 years, being able to step into a program like UNM Taos, which was really almost a clean slate when I got it. I mean, I really got the freedom to be able to do whatever I want with it. And it was like a dream come true. And the most important thing that I can do is make it about the students and give them the opportunities, and not be this kind of grandma's secret recipes. I'm not going to share what I know or my contacts. Their success is my success. So I want them to get to those places faster.
I wish more professors had that attitude. Sometimes I feel like there's this, like, you have to survive the hard things to get to the good thing. It's sort of very damaging to the whole art world. Yeah, so my final question,
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think that they've survived a lot already. And now it's time to kind of take all that, put it into work, and, put out this new generation of artists. I want them to bypass me, especially my painters, they do actually. I see their work after, a couple of years, and I'm like, wow, you're so far ahead of me. You keep going. You're going to surpass me. I love that.
Students out of that program.
Yeah, it's really great. I'm really lucky.
So final question, every artist gets this one. The exhibition was limited to artists from Taos or who have deep roots in Taos. What is your personal relationship with this place?
Well, it's the program. It's UNM Taos. I have decided, I mean, they're going to have to drag me out kicking and screaming, literally throw me away to get me to leave, because I fell in love with it. I used to think that I wanted to teach and be at a really kind of prestigious private art school. And I know now that that is not my dharma. And So my connection with Taos is really right now I want to get out of this pandemic so I can get back there. I miss that, being in the building and having the energy of the students. They're the most inspiring. They're what keep me working every day and keep me going. So yeah, it's, I've only been in New Mexico for 5 years and going on 6 years. And I was lucky to find my place at UNM Taos really quickly. And I really do feel like it's home, and I'm really grateful for the reception that I have gotten from the community, faculty, staff, and students.
Well, they're very lucky to have you, and we're very lucky to have you in this show. So thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for this time today. And thank you all for joining us on Facebook Live. Join us next time on January 20th, where we'll be interviewing Sarah Hart.